I find that in my experience, the best way to go about seeing what you're made of is to put yourself in the game and actually practice what you preach.
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We share practical tips and expert insights on the pretrial process, court reporting, and legal technology to keep you updated on how technology is revolutionizing the litigation process and the wider legal sector. I'm your host, Adrian Cea. Hello and welcome to Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. I'm your host, Adrian Cea, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of litigation support with a true expert in the field. Joining us is Jonathan Cohen. He's an associate general counsel and business strategist at PNY Technologies. He has a rich background that includes roles at SVU criminal prosecution, a motivational speaker, and a dedicated philanthropist. Jonathan brings a unique perspective on integrating advanced technologies into legal practices. And today we'll dive into how AI and other modern innovations are transforming the litigation process and what that means for attorneys navigating today's legal landscape, along with how to correct your mindset and help produce and move you forward into what you're doing into your practice. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
Doing great, man. Really excited to get you on the podcast. You know, we had a fascinating pre-call. And one of the things that really struck out to me is how you really honed in on mindset and what a difference it makes when it comes to tackling anything in the legal field. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you envisioned when it comes to building a strong mindset and what that really means?
It's a fascinating question for a few reasons, largely because I'm coming from a place where I didn't understand its value. I spent a lot of my youth without much self-awareness, without much self-belief, without much appreciation for what I could do, and I kind of waited for the world to come to me instead of me going to get the world. And I think part of what goes along with cultivating a mindset, a growth mindset, if you will, one that's mentally tough, one that's calloused through experience, one that allows you to put yourself in the game, is cultivated through failure. It's cultivated through rejection. It's cultivated through a willingness to make a fool of yourself. And how you go about building that kind of mindset comes through a perspective of realizing that you need to love yourself. And most people try to grit and grind their way through things. And there's definitely a value to that. I'm someone who likes to lift weights and run far distances or, follow through on intense experiences. And gritting and grinding only gets you so far. If you want to do any type of endurance in life or as an athlete, you need to reframe things. And you need to realize that because it's a long game, you need to keep reserves in the tank. And so coming out too fast, coming out too strong, burning out too quick, that's not an asset to anybody. There needs to be a level of resilience, and how you manage that headspace, how you manage that perspective comes down to how you talk to yourself, comes down to how you treat yourself, comes down to how you appreciate the little moments, comes down to realizing all the little different things in your life that you can be grateful for, whether it's a glass of water or the sunshine or time with your family or a good book. It's those little things that make life great. There's a great saying that the devil's in the details, but the divine can also be discovered there. And so if you focus on the divine, you'll lead a much more impactful and fulfilling life. And that takes effort. It's a conscious effort. It's one that has to be appreciated and practiced. You mentioned my SVU background. And, I didn't understand what it meant to cultivate presence in my life until I took the headphones out and started to embrace a certain level of presence. And that helped me be more present in the courtroom. It helped me be more present in my life with the people that I love and care about. It helped me be more present with myself. I run far distances. I run marathons and ultra marathons, and I don't run with headphones. And that sounds like a lot, but once you kind of flip that switch, you can't really go back. So like you've seen something, you can't unsee it. And it just leads to a much higher quality of life when you're doing things that help you build yourself, build your mindset. You're able to be more effective for the people around you, more effective in your job, because you're not someone who's distracted. You're someone who's engaged. And you're not someone who procrastinates. You're someone who tackles the hardest task first. And that is going to allow you to save more time. It'll allow you to be more effective and productive and more of an asset in any venture that you want to go pursue, at least in my experience. So that's how I've cultivated this kind of mindset.
It's great. And I can definitely see that playing a pivotal role in success in a law firm, right? I feel like when it comes to law, when it comes to scheduling the litigation process and following through with it, it could be very stressful for various people inside of a firm. Paralegals, for example, have to deal with all that case management and getting just mountains of paperwork and combing through it. So mindset plays a very pivotal role in all of this. So tell me, where do you think is a good beginning step to steering yourself in the right direction with the way you approach work? I know that you have a background in the military. You served in the IDF, and it played a pivotal role in your success in just cultivating this mindset and understanding things could be worse, right? So where can attorneys or anyone in a law firm take their first step towards building a stronger mindset?
I think the first thing, being someone who has seen the legal arena from a few different perspectives. I was a summer associate in big law for 2 summers, and I got to work under the famous Jerry Shargel, who was the lead attorney for the Gambino crime family when John Gotti was the head of the Gambino crime family. And I got to study under the vice chairman of Winston and Strawn. Once upon a time, still a dear mentor of mine. He's actually been on my podcast as well. You should go check it out on Inside the Inspired. And I watched him depose Warren Buffett firsthand. I've seen some very effective attorneys in the DA's office. I've had judges on my podcast as well. Michigan State Supreme Court Justice Richard Bernstein, blind from birth, run over 20 marathons, and an Ironman. I've seen these incredible individuals do things with the power of their mind and self-belief and with skill. And you asked about how, success and mindset align and where people can start. And it comes down to understanding yourself. It comes down to understanding that even though you're trying to aspire to do something great, that just gives you a ticket into the arena. You have to go and put yourself on the field. And so trial by fire is definitely a great way that I personally experienced putting myself in the game. I became an SVU prosecutor, by being willing to make a fool of myself, by being willing to fail. And so you have to kind of look at it as though you don't know everything. And if you come at things with an entitled mindset, you're not gonna be effective in the things that you do because it doesn't leave room for more information to enter your brain. You can still identify as a problem solver, but you may not come to the right solution. And so you have to be willing to surround yourself with great mentors. You have to surround yourself with the right influences. You have to have the right inputs around you in the sense of what content you're consuming, what articles you're reading, what Google notifications you have set up on your phone, what YouTube videos you decide to watch, and how you go about teaching that information once you've acquired it. It's got to be a level of continuous learning because we're entering this age of AI, right? And so a lot of life can be made easier as a result. But when most people think about AI and they think about mindset, they don't necessarily go hand in hand. But I was speaking at Stanford a couple weeks ago, and I speak about this particular topic, mental toughness in the age of AI, what it is, why you need it, how to build it. And the main thing is that AI is making our life easier. So I believe that means we need to get stronger. and we also need to adapt accordingly. But the question becomes, how can we use it to free up our time so we can go do more things, like build a better version of ourselves so we can be more effective in our jobs? And so the question is, where can AI actually be implemented? Like, what processes do you want optimized? What systems do you want to systematize? So this way you can be more effective in the things that you're doing and not waste time doing unnecessary shuffling of papers and admin work and work with antiquated systems. Are you going to be someone who can look and listen and observe to everything that's going on in their surroundings and environment? I was speaking last night with an incredible executive at a very high market cap, I'm being overbroad, very high market cap company that everyone is talking about lately. And I asked him, how have you been able to maintain this level of skill? Like, you say that you learned a lot through failure and such, but how have you gotten better, even though, like, throughout your career, how have you improved? In some substance was a question. And he says he likes to watch and he likes to listen. And this is coming from someone who, you'll just have to take my word for it, has a very reputable background and an extremely high net worth. And when you hear advice like that, and you take in conjunction with what I just shared about where AI can be implemented, the only way you'll learn how to solve problems and be effective in this next stage, or one of the most effective ways outside of just litigating or transacting, is to see what systems can be automated, what processes can you make more fluid. And the only way you'll really know that, especially as a new attorney, is if you're paying attention and watching and listening. So thinking about what can be optimized, thinking about and being present, right? We were talking about not operating with distractions and cultivating a certain mindset. If you can really zone in on the moment and be engaged, and you can watch and you can observe and you can listen, and you're looking to identify problems within the law firm that can be optimized and systematized through artificial intelligence, you're playing a different kind of game, because the game has changed. And so it's not just about being able to solve certain problems. Adding value is about solving problems. Pardon me, I misspoke. Solving problems is about adding value. So if you think about adding value and you think about how you can create value, it's going to be about what's going to distinguish you relative to everyone else. That's going to go beyond just bringing in new business or making an introduction or litigating your case effectively. That's now become the bare minimum. What are you going to do outside of that? And in my opinion, this next wave, for attorneys in particular, the best way to do that is to watch, observe, listen, and identify what processes can be optimized through artificial intelligence.
This is a fantastic piece of advice. It sounds so simple, but it can be so extremely effective, right? And sometimes it is just, keep it stupid simple. It's a phrase I always love to say, but it's very true. You just got to be able to simplify things down to their lowest denominator and then implement them very fast. And when it comes to implementation, right, you mentioned the ability to use AI into a law firm. A lot of our legal industry is very traditional in the way they approach a lot of technology. How do you think someone can approach the head of their firm, a partner, or whoever it may be, and really tell them, hey, we need to implement these processes. We need to have this type of new technology embedded in what we do. What's the best way that they can do that?
You need to find someone who believes that the solution that you're proposing, almost like an AI champion, someone who actually believes in the depth and the substance of what it is you're talking about at a philosophical or a very high level. And then you need to start small. You need to give them evidence. You need to be able to prove your thesis, right? Or your hypothesis, I should say. And you do that by picking a small project that can be optimized within your firm. And so don't try to solve the firm's biggest problem at the first go. Identify the biggest problem. Pick a small way that you can demonstrate how you could solve the bigger problem and then implement an AI-based solution accordingly. So scheduling, for example, maybe there's a scheduling software or a note-taking software. If there's confidentiality concerns, maybe there's solutions out there that can help you focus and ensure that you want an on-premises data center-based solution, that you don't have to be concerned about the cloud or anything like that. So you're going to opt to go with a particular solution that helps you feel more securitized in how you go about honing your information. So I would say for that particular question, you want to make sure that you have someone that believes in AI as the future. You want to make sure that you can demonstrate accordingly by starting small and then also being effective in how you go about that demonstration, and then slowly amplify once you've proved that your hypothesis is accurate. Say like, okay, we solved it on a small scale. Now we could scale it bigger.
Just be able to implement that process can make such a big difference into any type of law firm. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about is your transition in your career, right? You went from courtroom to boardroom, as you said, and you were the assistant district attorney. And then you now moved on to associate general counsel and business strategist. What was some of the largest lessons that you learned going from a courtroom setting to now more of a corporate boardroom setting?
Right now, the circumstances around what I do are so much different compared to what I used to do, because life and liberty isn't at issue. So the pressure is still high, but it's different. It's a demanding job, but at the same time, my focus and ability to be effective in the outcomes that I'm seeking to accomplish are around how to benefit an entity rather than how to just do the right thing. And so the moral compass is always pointing north, but for different reasons. And so some of the things that have shifted, I mean, there's an element of toxicity in being around violent crime all the time and how that impacts your mental health and the practices within your life. There were nights I couldn't sleep. There were things that I went through that forced me to become a better person because I wanted to improve but didn't know how. So I had to learn how to listen and observe, but also in my free time, take on a continuous learning of, in my case, philosophy. Stoicism. I read hundreds of books on personal development, and I was looking for solutions that could help me get myself to a state where I could manage the anxiety, I could manage the stress, and learning those tools in that kind of environment and learning how to stay calm under pressure with the stakes so high have helped me perform at a high level here because I know how to manage my nervous system consciously. Djokovic even talks about this, where conscious breathing is not this woo-woo, like random thing. It's an actual effective practice that helps people operate despite their emotions and get to a place where you can calm your nervous system and be effective and act despite those emotions. So being in an environment like the Bronx where I was, it allowed me to train my nervous system and my mind in a way that could teach me to show up regardless of how I felt and still perform at a high level. As in, just because I felt a certain way didn't mean I had to act in accordance with that. So even if I was having a bad day, I still had to stand up in court and argue on behalf of a victim who had had a much worse day than me. So I stopped making it about me and I started to make it about the cause. I started to make it about the case. I started to make it about the responsibility of showing up and being effective in those moments. So that's part of some of the circumstances that have helped me be effective as an attorney now, and also would have allowed me to train the underlying skill set that's made me impactful in my job as a professional today.
Wow. And I hear that when you mentioned listening and acting in the past, right? And then you were able to understand that it's not about yourself I think it takes on a whole new mindset that allows you to just take action a lot more effectively. Now, one thing we mentioned and we talked about in the pre-call was one difference that a associate, anyone that could come into a law firm, how can they actually start making a difference? And you had a great story of how you started an internship program at PNY. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
The number one thing when you come in to any new entity, at least if you want to make a name for yourself, is to add value, right? And so for me, that goes outside the scope of just whatever my title is. And it's not necessarily doing someone else's job, but what can add value overall to the entity? I was told that we're looking to hire and we wanted a process for that. My initial inclination was to create an internship program. We'd had one in the past, but it wasn't as formalized. And so I took my experience as a summer associate. I took my experience. I also interned for a professional sports team. At the time, they were the New Jersey Nets. Now they're the Brooklyn Nets. And also I had an internship experience in a personal injury law firm. I also had experience where I was the mentor to interns when I was a prosecutor at the DA's office. And I saw all these different examples of how, firsthand, of how an internship program is run. So I designed my own. And I took the best parts of all those programs and I created one that encompasses meaningful work, meaningful mentorship, meaningful experience, and puts all of it together where we were able to design something that has created a avenue for thousands of applications to come in where we only pick about 5. And we're going up. We just finished our 3rd year. And what's interesting about it is, and I've only been here for 3 years, so it's not that when you create something, you have to watch over it like a hawk. I don't like to micromanage. I like to delegate and empower people to take on responsibility, to show them what they're capable of so they can go on and do that for someone else, because I think that's how you make bigger, stronger ripples in the world, by empowering people so they could go domino effect to someone else. And so because we created this program and we systematized it and we've made it better year over year, I've been able to take a step back and I haven't had to do anything the last 2 years. We just created it, we ran with it, and I get to be the guest speaker for the last 2 years, which is great. The first year, obviously, I was running it. So now we're in a much different position and the program's taken on a life of its own. We've made a couple hires out of it, which is the initial goal, and finding out that problem of, hey, we're looking for people to hire. What can we do? I came up with this idea of an incubator, and a couple of years later, we've had some really good prospects come out and still with the company today.
Wow. So for anyone hearing this story, one of the biggest lessons they can really take away is just read in between the lines, really listen, hear what the problem could be, kind of foresee it, and then take action to change it in your own way.
And time. I think my biggest thing with this, like being so eager and ambitious to make an impact, has been not undermined, but I'm a patient person. I think that's one of my assets and my faults. As much as there's a power in standing still, there's also a element of, like I said, letting the world come to you. Sometimes you have to go get the world, right? And so I had such a crazy eagerness to be an asset that it almost was a downfall because I'm reading the wrong information or I'm not paying enough attention to what's going on in front of me. But like you were saying, read between the lines. When you're present and you're engaged, right? You practice that by not running with headphones. You practice that by being grateful. You practice that by staying in the moment. And you're listening and observing, right? Like we were talking about from the lessons learned from me, but also the executive that I was referring to. When you take those elements and you put them together and you let time kind of play its role, you'll see things slowly come to you. I'm not talking about like a couple weeks. I'm talking about it could take like a year or two, but you still got to be like on your way. Like a couple years later, the internship program sounds successful, right? And it is. But leading up to it, there was a lot of doubt. And so like, why do we need this? Why do we need to bring on interns? We're very focused. There's a lot of pushback. But I was able to make a small case, going back to the previous example, of how it could be effective by showing the demand, saying, at least let me put this out there, see what kind of feedback we get. And then with a small sample size, we were able to make, I think it was 1 or 2 hires out of that first class. So I believe it was 2 actually. And with that small sample size, we're able to keep the internship program running. I step back and now I focus on other big problems that I'm entrusted with more responsibility today. So it's a slow process, but time is definitely a factor.
Great to hear. And really very important piece to that entire puzzle is you can't force things, right? Sometimes you got to let them play out. Slowly but surely, it'll come to fruition. Now, Jonathan, this has been a fantastic conversation. I wanted to give you here some time to talk about your current endeavors, motivational speaking, your podcast, and tell us more about it.
I host a podcast called Inside the Inspired. It is a project near and dear to my heart. We have over 150 episodes in interviewing high performers ranging from F-16 pilots to state Supreme Court justices to Navy SEALs to professional athletes to professional broadcasters. And these guests are incredible content creators with millions and millions of followers and venture capitalists. The goal is to inspire by understanding that there is no one single source of truth. There is no one way to accomplish your goals or achieve quote unquote success. And so I really focus in on, or the podcast really focus in on the mindset blueprint of these high performers to see how they look at things so they can go and be effective in their endeavors. And mindset is only a part of it. Heartset is another element. Soulset is another part of it. And work ethic is another part of it. So when you take all of these different elements and bring them together, Inside the Inspired is really investigating what kind of mindset you need to embrace in order to go and achieve these different things. And a common attribute and characteristic of the high performers that I've interviewed is mental toughness. And so I double down and zone in on mental toughness in particular as part of it. So that's a bit about the podcast. I also have a background in doing endurance challenges where over the last couple of years, I've raised tens of thousands of dollars for different organizations for different challenges that I've done. Like most recently, I did 1,018 pull-ups in 4 hours and raised over $20,000 for an organization called the Friendship Circle that helps children with special needs integrate into society by learning real-life skills like going to the bank and buying groceries, getting their nails done, basic things like that. And so this year we're running it back. We're doing another challenge where I'm running 58 miles on September 7th. Where we're raising money for the Friendship Circle again, and it's 58 miles straight. It's a 6.6 mile loop 7 or 8 times until I hit the 58 miles. It's an official 50-mile race with 8 miles added on to raise awareness for the cause. And the point of this is to practice these principles that I talk so deeply about. When I'm not investigating these topics in interviews, reading about them in books, or reading meta-analyses, or speaking about these topics at universities like Stanford, it's me in the field practicing this self-love, saying it's not because I have some desire to self-sabotage that I'm going and putting myself in a position to run these challenges. It's because I want to see what I'm made of and that I know I'm capable of more. That's why I want to do these challenges. And so it's a big part of seeing how far can I push myself in a healthy way, in a strategic way. Ross Edgley, also we'll call him a scholar sports scientist or a stoic sports scientist, who also does these crazy challenges, but like tenfold what I do. And he investigates how philosophy can help you navigate your mindset in order to pursue really hard things. And, there's a whole sports science element to it as well. And so I find that in my experience, the best way to go about seeing what you're made of is to put yourself in the game and actually practice what you preach. So I'm not just out here saying I've interviewed people. It's not just me talking about it. It's me doing it and seeing how these principles are in real time and if they really truly work. And I believe that they do. And this run is going to be a testament to that. And so the opportunity to speak about these topics is a blessing, continuing to speak to bar associations, other philanthropic organizations, and it's just an awesome opportunity to continue to share my findings and create value in a different kind of way.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for, letting us know what you're getting involved in. How can the people find you if they want to shoot you a message or get involved with any of these projects?
You can find me on Instagram at Jonathan Z. Cohen. You can also find me on YouTube, Jonathan Z. Cohen Inside the Inspired. Just started publishing the podcast, I think it was last year, and slowly getting more and more views, and very humbly a few 100,000 views. And the Instagram following is growing as well. So come join the community. We'd love to have you. And you could just shoot me a DM. Happy to take the conversation from there.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your time here today. I hope you had a fantastic conversation with us, the same way we did with you. And anyone listening, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Peace out. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.